everyone. This is Pam Slim, and I am looking at the face of somebody I love, who is Jonathan Fields, author of the just about to be brand new released out in the world book, Uncertainty, Turning Fear and Doubt into Fuel for Brilliance. So thanks for joining me right before your book launches. and Jonathan and I have shared many stories over the years about what it means to be a business owner, in particular, talking about a lot of our own journey for how we're building a business. And as I was thinking about Escape from Cubicle Nation readers, of all the folks I think out there who often really think about uncertainty and are scared about it and are concerned about leaving their corporate job to start a business, or for people that are already small business owners that get impacted by what often is a scariness out there, within the economic environment. What have you learned in the whole process of putting together this book and really digging into the research that led to a subtitle like Turning this Fear and Doubt into Fuel for Brilliance? Because that really tells me that you have seen something deep and powerful and positive that comes from this uncertainty.
Yeah, and so it's kind of fascinating. We've both been in this place personally because we've both made the journey that we're talking about. And it's something that never goes away. And I think the real big realization, the starting point, is the fact that is an understanding and an acceptance of the fact that those butterflies that you feel when you're trying to bring something amazing to life, they actually have to be there. The problem with that is that most people experience them as some form of pain or suffering. I mean, literally our brains come into adulthood, most people, not everyone, but most people, wired to experience having to be in that place of uncertainty, having to actually take action to invite more of it as fear and anxiety. And the amygdala in our brains lights up the fear centers. So we experience it as something that makes us really uncomfortable, really anxious. And so we want to get rid of that feeling, because it's not a comfortable feeling for people. So what we do is in an attempt to get rid of that feeling, we start to backpedal or we shut down, we stop forward movement, and we figure, okay, and we keep doing that until we get to a place where we don't feel that anymore. But what we don't realize is in that same process, we've inadvertently killed everything we're trying to create. So, so the big awakening is the notion that this is actually, it's a signpost that what you're doing is something that matters to you. And that's scary for a lot of people, because anytime you try and do something where you don't know how it's going to end, where you have to take action every day with less than complete information, it makes us a little bit uncomfortable. But the answer is not to shut down or run from it. The answer is to learn how to exist with as much comfort as possible in that place, because that's the place where the coolest stuff in business and life and art happens. So, rather than saying, okay, how can I get rid of the feeling, or how can I, back away or shut down until I don't feel that anymore, the quest becomes, you reframe it as, okay, this is necessary. This is a signpost that I'm doing something really cool that matters to me. How can I get as comfortable as humanly possible in this place, and maybe even get to a place where I can actually harness it to a certain extent and use it as really powerful creative juice for what I'm trying to do.
So some people might say, well, easier said than done. And so let's talk about some very specific examples, all right?
Yeah.
It's interesting, I've been coaching the last couple of days and had a number of really wonderful, deep conversations with really, really smart people that are doing things like starting a blog for the first time, or realizing that they have a really powerful message that they want to get out in the world. And the common kinds of conversation that we get into after they're expressing that anxiety of like, what if it's not the right thing? What if people laugh at me? What if I don't really understand my plan? The conversation becomes, what's the worst thing that can happen, by putting yourself out there. And
Right.
A lot of times the fears are designed in order to protect us. And in some cases, for people that might be considering leaving their job, for example, in this kind of economic climate, how can you distinguish between fear and uncertainty that's really saying, don't do it, don't start your business, don't invest in this program, you don't have the money right now, from the state that you're talking about, which is just knowing that it's okay when you're trying something new to feel a little bit of doubt?
So you had to start with the single hardest question to answer.
Yes, I got it. Do I get a prize? Yes.
Man, it's funny because there's a whole chapter in the book that deals with this because I started asking people because I'm doing all this research and there are like a ton of workflow adaptations and all sorts of great processes and strategies that make a huge difference. But then there's this time where people are like, okay, how do I know whether this is like actually telling, whether this is a smart like thing, which is telling me like, shut up and go home, or whether this is something that I actually should like be propelling myself forward. So I started asking all these really cool people and smart people and big creators, how do you know? And one by one, they all started coming up with variations of, you just know. You just know. You know whether it's, how is it, is this resistance or is it really good intuition that's telling me to stop? And they're like, well, you know. And I'm like, I don't think you do. So it's a very, very difficult question to answer. And I start out with one really big question when I look at that. And one is, do you feel that what you're about to embark on is a calling, or is this something which is a sort of a current interest? Because it changes the process. If you believe in your heart that this is something that you're being called to do on the planet, it will change the way that you move forward and move into it, and it will change the way that you process a lot of what you're feeling. Because to genuinely feel that way, you are going to be moving forward pretty much no matter what you feel. It may not be pretty, and you may suffer, and it may not be comfortable, but if you feel this is the thing you've been put on the planet to do, it's the thing you can't not do, it becomes very hard to justify not doing the thing you can't not do. But the really important thing is to actually own that, if you feel like that's that thing for you, there may be a fair amount of disruption that goes on in your life around it. And this is a lot of the amazing work that you do, sort of like getting a really realistic understanding of what's that disruption going to look like.
Right.
And what's the impact going to be on me, on my family, on my career, on all the other things that I hold dear in the relationships. Am I willing to own that level of disruption? And it's a very, very tough question, because if you're a grown-up with a family and responsibilities, and you feel like this is a point in your life where you've suffered for decades, you feel so strongly called to do this one thing in your life, like this is what you're here on earth to do, but you know that that's going to cause a lot of disruption in your life, at least for the near term, until you sort of figure out how to rebuild around it. It's a very difficult thing. It's a very, very difficult thing, and I think there's no easy answer to that question. And I think, but one of the most important things is to actually understand the process that we're talking about right now, and have somebody like you, or have somebody who's really intelligent and qualified to walk you through the questions and all the considerations, so you can really map it out and understand exactly what this will undertake and make a deliberate decision about how you want to move into it. One of the things that I talked about in my last book, actually, and you write about a lot also, is not just sort of making a big abrupt break, but moving into it sort of slowly and building on the side, in what you call your side hustle, until you actually see it, it's viable. And and one of the things that happens with some people also is that thing that they believe in their heart is their calling, when they're not doing it. Once they actually start to do it, and they get a couple months or years into it, and they actually see, oh, well, this is what it really is. This is, when I get out of fantasy in my head and into this is the reality of what it is. So like, oh, well, the fantasy was the thing that I could not do, but the reality, yeah, it kind of sucks. So, one of the really powerful things to do is to do that, is to start to find ways that you can explore it on the side without making a big disruptive leap, so you can get really intelligent information and find out, is this real? Is what I have in my head the reality of what this, possible path is? So that's in the world of sort of exploring calling. And then if the answer is no, it's more of a deep interest, then you start to really set up a system of benchmarks and take action into it. So, like fear and anxiety are anticipatory emotions. You can't experience them. You can only experience them before you've actually acted on something and seen how it's going to unfold. Once you start to take some small actions, and you're in the position, you can't experience them anymore because you have real information. You're not anticipating what's going to happen anymore. Will I fail? Will I succeed? Will I be judged? You have the information. And it may not be fun because you might not get the answer you want, but you're no longer experiencing the fear and anxiety. You're just experiencing whatever the fallout or the positive outcome is from the actions are. So one of the most powerful things that you can do is start to take small steps and benchmark what's happening. Create mechanisms that allow you to be comfortable as you're moving forward, and consistently benchmark and see how's your gut reaction doing, and create metrics to sort of plot, on a regular basis what's happening and whether that feeling in your gut seems to be responding differently as you move deeper into this thing. But it's a very, very difficult question. That is probably the single thing out of everything that I researched, which is still the biggest challenge for everybody that I've met on every level. But I think a lot of these sort of more practical step-by-step things can help you take action and just sort of keep asking the question, keep trying to figure it out along the way.
Definitely. The one thing I think of is, being a martial artist, I often like the full contact analogy of like entrepreneurship as a full contact sport. And when I think about all the touch points in life, often knowing myself personally, what helps me to understand myself better and to know what to trust in terms of intuition or gut is the more that I, just begin to pay attention to myself and sort through what's kind of a BS feeling versus what's reality. The more I'm conscious, as you were saying, of really taking a moment to kind of meditate and really notice what I'm feeling, to notice how I'm feeling physically, to really be in touch with my physical body, because often your physical body will give you all kinds of signals that you're not even aware of if you're stuck in your head. And the neat thing about that is that particular kind of quality that you're really talking about developing, which goes along with uncertainty, does not just apply to business. People have the very same questions when it's like, should I marry this person? Should I divorce this person? Should I have kids? Should I move away to a different city? And a lot of getting comfortable with that state of uncertainty, as you're saying, and being aware of it means that you are going to probably make faster decisions, I would imagine, right? Kind of figure out ways to make faster decisions.
Yeah, faster decisions, better decisions.
Yeah.
And much more creative solutions to the problems that lie in front of you.
Yeah.
And one of the strategies, just basic daily practices that I talk about, and we sort of talk about a bunch of variations in the book, is some sort of what I call the big categories of attentional training, or what falls under that: meditation, mindfulness, biofeedback, all these different variations of it. And there's so many benefits that, and everyone knows the health benefits and stress and anxiety reduction, but there's really tremendous research around how it affects cognitive function, creativity, problem solving. But the other thing, as I was talking to people about it, they would point to it as something that it was a source of, it was like a keel in a storm on a boat. It was that place where they would go and touch stone, but it was also a place where it gave them the ability to almost step outside of themselves and look in and have more clarity, more objective clarity and observer, to sort of like see better, to be in a better position to translate the visceral reactions that they were experiencing. It gave them just a much deeper level of baseline calm from which to react from. And those aren't practices where they're not intervention type of practices. They're not type of thing where, hey, I'm going to drop into mindfulness and bam, I'll get the answer. Those are practices that you develop. It's a daily practice. It's like brushing your teeth. You do it over time. You don't come to the mat or whatever it is that you do with the expectation of having some sort of enlightening or super deep calming experience when you're there. You just know that you practice, and over time the impact becomes pretty profound. A lot of people across a wide variety of, from artists to writers to really high level corporate people. Former CEO of a $60 billion multinational medical devices company, who was telling me that the single practice that basically has allowed him to be in that place where he built the company from $12 billion to $60 billion was a 27-year, twice-a-day transcendental meditation practice. And this is like a very buttoned-down, very well-known, established, now Harvard business professor. And when you hear people like that starting to credit their ability to be in that place with uncertainty and act there and lean into it in the quest to build cooler, better things, you're starting to say, this is interesting, because it's becoming much more accepted in the mainstream. And the really cool thing is that the research over the last 10 to 20 years around these practices is tremendous. So it's impossible to say that they don't work, or it's just some sort of freaky woo-woo thing anymore.
Exactly. Well, and what's so interesting is the way, looking at your own journey, that you have been operating in so many different environments as a Wall Street securities lawyer, and then as a business owner of wellness related businesses with your yoga studio, and being a writer, and being somebody who is interested in meditation and so forth. It must have been really fun to write the book, to be able to have a place to really integrate so much of your own life experience, which is quite unique to the experience that most people have.
It was, and it actually really it changed my creative process. So as I'm writing the book, I'm talking to all these people, and I was looking for people who have grown up, who have responsibilities, but also people who have created really big, cool things across a wide variety of fields. And so like rather than sort of mid-level creators who kind of constantly hum along and do okay things, I was looking for people who were doing really big things in the world, and a lot of research also. And as I'm talking to more and more of these people, they're all saying you reach a point where you have to abandon the plan, where you come in with whatever idea that you have, and you start with every creative process starts with largely just with a question, and it starts with a lot of guesses and a lot of intuition. And over a period of time, as you move the needle forward, you move the ball forward, intuition becomes, and a hunch becomes replaced by fact. But very often the fact completely shreds the original hunch. And that's why a lot of businesses, the most successful businesses always pivot their model, and very often multiple times. If you are not open to the notion that you were dead wrong when you started, you're very likely to fail, or you may get exactly where you wanted to go, but what you will have done is ignore, a bazillion different opportunities and paths that presented themselves to you that would have gotten you so much closer to your true potential, because you were just so linearly focused on that one thing, because you were so unwilling to go to that place where you were uncomfortable and you didn't know what was going to come next. Because you have to. So one of the things I discovered was you reach a point where you have to be willing to abandon the plan and let the project go where it needs to go organically. And that's very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable for me. And as I was writing the book, as I'm talking to all these people and they're sharing their journeys, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not doing that with this book.
Right.
And I am so busted here, because I'm like, I said, I have to go to that place with this book too. And there was a solid chunk of it where I didn't know. We've talked about this, along the way. I didn't know where it was going. I didn't know how it was going to end, and I didn't even know the central focus was going to be around uncertainty, until this became, every time, with every interview that I did, when we got onto this topic, the conversation lit up. And it became so clear that this is such a huge issue and nobody's talking about it.
Yes.
Which is really constructive and pragmatic, that this is what it had to be. So that wasn't what the book started out as, but that's where it had to go.
Which is so neat, and for me it's such a treat, having been with you along so much of the journey and hearing different ideas and iterations. I will be as bold as to say that learning how to really understand and deal with uncertainty is the master skill of the next number of decades. I really do believe it. And by that I mean, for people who are able to really do that, if you look at any kind of business skill or thing that you need to be successful, sales or marketing or finance or project management, whatever it is, this is one that truly will cross a lot of areas. So I'm really glad that you've written it and analyzed it that way.
And it's also, when I started out, the world was in an interesting time, but it's become an even more interesting time. And it's become, so the book was largely written in the context of creating really cool things in art and entrepreneurship and business. But all the same tools and processes and ideas and strategies are the exact same things that you lean on to deal with an uncertain life and uncertain times. And it's crystal clear now that disruption is the new normal. So what I'm really excited about is the possibility that the application of all the stuff that I spend a lot of time trying to put together will extend far beyond the world of trying to bring cool things to life and into the realm of just living more peacefully and more comfortably and more happily in the world in times which are uncertain.
Definitely, and that's the message I get so excited about, because you know this, and I think my readers know this, that I don't see great disruption as being something that's totally terrible. I'm not dismayed thinking that for the next generation that's coming out, you know, from college, that it's a terrible time to be here. I think it's an extremely exciting time to be on the planet. And sometimes when a lot of things blow up, it gives us the opportunity to really recreate them in a way that makes more sense. And as you said, that really, you know, lends to more peace and happiness and joy and things like that.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that opportunity is the other side of the disruption coin. I mean, and you and I are living through this right now as authors as well. You know, the publishing industry is in mass upheaval, and there are a lot of authors who've been a part of the industry for decades who are very unhappy and freaking out because they've come up under 1 mile and they don't want it to change. For, I think, people who are newer to the system, and we come at it from a place of more entrepreneurship where we're sort of like used to living in that place where things change all the time, you know, I look at this and I'm salivating because there's so much opportunity as an author now to just do things on so many different levels and have so much more control. You know, it's playtime.
Definitely. Well, I am so excited about it. I'm so proud of you for putting together such a fantastic book. And where is the place for people to learn more about the book and to pick up a copy or 10?
Sure. So you can go to theuncertaintybook.com. I have the book is actually out on September 29th, but I've got a bunch of different cool pre-order offers up there that will let you grab some really neat stuff. And it's not your standard bazillion worthless giveaway type thing. It's actually just a small number of some really high-level stuff. Or if you just want to, like, it's also available anywhere else. On Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your local independent booksellers, it's available pretty much anywhere.
Awesome. And you can also find Jonathan on Twitter at Jonathan Fields. So please drop by and say hi. Best of luck for your launch, which I know is going to be wonderful. And then for the length of the book's life, which I think is going to be a really long time, because as I said, we're going to need these tools for a long time. So thanks, Jonathan.
My pleasure. It's always fun hanging out.